How did this time get away from me? It's already the end of the month. I have another stack here. Oh my goodness. What happened to filming halfway through the month? I've got to get better on this. So let's talk about all these books today. Well, first of all, let's kind of go into the audiobooks that I did this month. One of them is a nonfiction. One of them is a children's classic. So let's kind of start out with that nonfiction book. And I actually have something to show you with that. It is Mama Bear Apologetics. It is by Hillary Morgan Farrar. And I actually listened to the HOOPLA version of it, read by the general editor. This is she just kind of compiled it, put it together, so on and so forth. But it's actually a collection from many mothers on why apologetics is important in our Christian world. This was recommended to me, and normally with recommendations, I kind of write them down and then pick it up. But this person never really recommends books to me, and when she did, I really just kind of captured it. A lot of people recommend books to me, and I look them up, and then I'll kind of save them. And then as I find them, I'll be like, oh yeah, someone recommended that to me. This one, I just went and looked and see if it was available. I had just finished another nonfiction, and so it was all God's timing, I tell you. I did not want to stop listening to it. Unfortunately, I'm starting to understand cabin fever. We've barely seen the sun. It's been more cloudy, overcast, and cold. Not so much outdoor times. We're trying to get out there. It's just not so much. And the kids are truly feeling it. And so it's most of the time it's too loud for this. But I have a crochet project I'm working on. So it's been phenomenal after the kids go to bed just to try to do it then. What I like about the audiobook, and it's on HOOPLA, which is your library audio app thing, is that it's read by Hillary Morgan Farrar, and I kind of like to know when she wants to bring home a point. Your voice changes when you're doing that, or when you're being sarcastic, and sometimes that's hard to get in your books. Guys, it's going to be ridiculously loud. My kids are going stir crazy. I promise them as soon as I'm done with this video, we're going for a walk, because oh my goodness, I'm ready to strangle them all. And I love every single one of their hearts, but oh my goodness. Anyway, this was really good. I actually got online and recommended it to several mamas, because I was like, you know what? We've talked something similar to this. Someone put something together. There is a podcast. There is a website. Highly recommend this. And I'm sorry, everything's backwards. I want to be professional here. I really do. I just limited with what I have, and that's that. The other audio book we did was a full cast reenactment of Treasure Island by Robert Louis Stevenson. Okay, so I have done multiple things with this. We had a unabridged one-person read of Treasure Island. I've had the actual book. I've done the classic starts, and finally we did this. It is just not my kids' favorite. It's pirates, so I thought for sure it would be, but it really just isn't their favorite. They, I would say out of all of it, the classic starts one has probably been the most used, the most enjoyed, but this book for the kids just isn't. Now, I really enjoyed it. I really got, especially that full character cast, which I think I picked up the audiobook for $1.99 at one point. Drink my Hoosier cup. But it was really great. In my opinion, it was acted out well. It stuck to the story in terms of word for word, pretty good insofar as possible. And I really did enjoy that. My kids, not so much. So that's kind of like a 4-star book. All right, and then I'm going to go back into another nonfiction. This one is Women of the Word by Jen Wilkin. It is marked, underlined, all that. And I don't normally do that. But this one is, again, one of those rare books that I read, got maybe a third of the way through, and it's not a big book. It's but it packs a punch. I got a third of the way through, and I literally went and bought a copy for every one of my little Bible study group. I got one for my mother-in-law. That is high praise indeed if I picked one up for her, is the whole point in this. And it literally is a book that I got done. My husband kept hearing and reading certain things of it, and he wanted to read it, and I'm like, well, you need to start because I need to go back and kind of read to apply now, not just read to see what it's about. So really recommend that one. It was really good. And then the last nonfiction I have to share with you is Educated by Tara Westover. I was so hesitant to read because she was homeschooled, and I was like, I do not want to read another memoir about the evils of homeschooling and how this needs to be. It's actually nothing like that at all, in my opinion. It isn't a should children be homeschooled or not. It doesn't even have, like, sometimes you can see a weave in it about the hidden agenda behind it. And I didn't even see any of that. What I saw was a young girl kind of showing how and why we need to be gentle with those that have been brainwashed. And it really is a book about brainwashing. Westover was the neighbor to the Ruby Ridge, I think it was Ruby Ridge, shootout. And I don't think they talk about this at all. Honey, go play. And it's basically this Mormon family, and it's not even a thing against Mormons, because I think she's still Mormon. It's just the story of this girl dealing with brainwashing, her family, her siblings leaving, some of the horrific abuse she went through without even realizing it was abuse, and kind of overcoming all of this in order to be educated and going to certain colleges. She's a child prodigy, so it's not like, I'm not gonna say it's not like she had to work hard for it, because heck yeah, she did, but it's not your average child overcoming all these things in order to do this. So it was really good. I think I did end up giving it 4 or 5 stars. I don't remember. And again, it wasn't what I expected, which I kept hearing that. But there's still just that, but you all don't see the underlying agenda here, propaganda. Well, I really didn't find any. It really is just her sharing. The Glass Castle, I had to put away. I hear good things about it, but after the burn thing and that hitting way too close to home, I had to put it away. So, okay, let's get into, I'm actually going to go and do my more adult books now. It sounds scandalous, but that's not what I mean at all. All right, so the first one I read this month is The Bookwoman of Troublesome Creek. And I was kind of disappointed just because of the hype it was given. I don't think it really met that hype. But this is about a traveling librarian that was done during the 20s. FDR kind of put this thing together, but in the sense that she's different, she is part of the Blue Bloods of Kentucky. Now, there was people that basically turned blue. Their blood was blue, and they had this condition that kind of goes all the way back to such and such. Well, it kind of really put the scene like in Christie. If you guys have ever read or watched the Christie series, it kind of gives you an idea of the backwardness of the Appalachian culture in Kentucky. I think this is actually, no, it is Kentucky. Okay, I was wondering if it was Tennessee, but it's actually Kentucky. So they have all the superstitions, and then you've got a blue blood in there, which is literally blue blood. And so they're kind of outcasted, but you also kind of see how even further down the totem pole they were other than or more than the Black culture. And so you get some of that in there. And those were the things that I thought were really highlighted. The story in itself of her is really difficult. Her father is obsessed with finding her a husband, someone that could take care of her, and so much that he kind of sells her to, and it's not really selling. He basically bribes somebody, hey, you can have all this land if you take my daughter for your bride. And it's an elderly man, and he's like out to purify her with his seed, and you get that, and it's disgusting. And it was more tactfully done, but you walk away feeling dirty. And then it happens again with his cousin, who is a preacher, and again, it's all about purifying the seed, or purifying her through his seed, I should say. So there's just some things like that that I am not okay with, and it's in that book. So those were some things that I think marked it down to a 3-star read for me. So there is a lot of that. Oh my gosh, my hair drives me so crazy, y'all. I'm sorry. So there's a lot of that. Again, I'm trying to think. There's, again, it brought back kind of Christy vibes or memories for me, in the sense that as she's traveling to these different homes, you kind of get their story in all of it. So you've got this young black girl, I'm pretty sure she's black, who ended up marrying someone. She's pregnant, and so you kind of get her. She's trying so hard to educate herself so she can educate her baby. You've got her story. You've got another one that just this little boy is sick. He's dying, like, you know, from malnutrition, and you understand all the malnutrition going on there, and it's described. So again, those types of things I really enjoyed. Just her main story, and then there's a guy that kind of shows up in the book, and it was just one of those too convenient romance type things. So that's kind of the stuff that took the star down for me. Okay, enough about that book. Let's talk about another 5-star read. Actually, Educated was 5-star. I remember that now, because I was like, wow, I've done a lot of 5-star reads, and then I got this one. It's a little disappointing. But let's talk about another 5-star read, and this is The Last Days of Night by Graham Moore. This one I was talking so much about after it was done that I hope I can do this review justice, just because I've talked so much about it that it's not that it disappears from you, but in a sense, more kind of just comes in part. But this is the lawsuit between Edison and Westinghouse. And this is told through a lawyer's perspective of Westinghouse. This is told through the lawyer's perspective, and it brings in Tesla, which we are Team Tesla over here. And it's not just a story of how Westinghouse and Tesla fought this out over patents and all of that, and how Tesla got used, but it's a story. It's just such a great living book. The only thing that I had objectionable about this was the only language used was very common in that day, and it's actually worse than the F word for me. Just because I don't think you can get worse than this, and it's when you take God's name in vain and send him to hell, if you get that idea. So I actually took a black Sharpie and just crossed them out, because I really wanted to give my kids this book when they are in their teens. But it's not just the whole understory of patents and, you know, who really invented, because that's what this whole story goes to, who really invented the light bulb. And that is something that the lawyer goes into. Who is relative? The light bulb? Is there really only one light bulb? Light bulb. What entices a light bulb? And invented. Okay, what does invent really mean? And he kind of goes through all this in telling the story. This is, of course, early 1900s, late 1800s, 1888. And so you're getting a complete culture change. You're dealing with old money versus new money. So kind of Gatsby thing, totally better than Gatsby. I'm not a Gatsby fan at all. You're getting the old money, new money. You're getting the change, the revolution of newspapers and how they were bought off. You are getting a lot of behind the scene things with this book. Oh my goodness. I really cannot stop talking. I just, every time I would read a section, I would rush to my husband and kind of hash it out with him. And of course, now he's wanting to read that after he finishes Gentleman of Moscow, which I got him to read that. So totally 5-star read. Highly recommend that. I got this at Ollie's for $1.99, I think, maybe $2.99. There is a nice hardcover copy that I didn't see before. And I kind of like the hardcover back. So if you're like picky about that, look for the hardcover copy at Ollie's. But this one is gorgeous. And the title is just phenomenal. The Last Days of Night. Wow. Like, I love that title. So totally hyped up. I give it 6 out of 5 stars. Just because I was just so... I've always loved lawyer type stories. And the guy in here, Paul Kravitz, he kind of took how this new revolution idea of what is it called? Where you've got certain people working on this and certain people working on that in order to create a one product thing. I can't think of that word. I know it, just can't think of that word. But he kind of revolutionized the lawyer aspect, and the author attributes it to that. One more thing I will say about that. The author, phenomenal. Okay, so what he did in the back, he took dates and incidences and kind of gave you an idea of what he took liberties on and how it really happened and where he got his information. So he kind of supported this fictionalized story with that. And so I thought that was, again, another A+ for me because of that. If you're going to kind of create this living history type of thing with a little bit of liberties, thank you for pointing out where you took those liberties. So, and where you got your source for that information. So highly recommend that. That was definitely a hyped book that I completely agree with. And I am finishing Tess of D'Urbervilles by Thomas Hardy. This is January's Classic Book of the Month Club that's going on Instagram by Helena from Reading with the Classics. She's a Charlotte Mason mama, but she has like multiple accounts, and she put this little book club together. And Thomas Hardy, Tess of D'Urbervilles was January's pick. February's is Mill and Floss, which I believe is by Daniel Defoe. I have been wanting to read this one forever. I know that Justine Waddle did a she did a rendition of this and played Tess, and I've been wanting to see that forever. But now reading this story, I don't know if she would have done a good job. Justine Waddle is the one that played Molly in Wives and Daughters, which is one of my favorite books, or favorite movies, kind of a book too, of all times. It's one of my favorite. It kind of, for me, it has Mansfield Park similarities, and so I really enjoyed Mansfield Park. That's still my favorite Jane Austen. Anyway, let's go back to Tess. I'm this far and trudging through. The thing that really was difficult for me, this is not an easy classic. Hardy loves words and puts many philosophical sermons into a sentence, like or sections. And so he'll talk about how she's gloomy and walking down the road, and then he like has this philosophical thing where he has to sermonize how people were of the day and all of that, and you're just like, dude, get to the story, please. And so what I ended up doing was getting to a certain page thing, and then I found a free Amazon Prime video of it. I'll leave it linked down below because it's pretty good. The gal that plays in it, I recognize her from something, and I can't think of what. I think it might be Railway Children. Anyway, so I would watch the first section to where I got. Now, it ended up going like a few pages past where I had stopped, so it kind of had unfortunately, it did have a little bit of a spoiler for me, but I kind of thought it might go that direction. I don't think I don't want to ruin it, but I also want to forewarn you that she's innocent, but she's not as innocent as you would like her to think. But in one sense, she was completely innocent on how authors portray men to be as lustful, and someone takes advantage of her in that way that you're assuming. And it was it was done in such a way that I was like, wait a minute, did that just happen? It did. I confirmed it with somebody else, and then later on it was confirmed again. And the movie, I just skipped forward. I know what was going to happen, and I just skipped it. I did not want to know. So I don't know if I'm really going to enjoy this one, to be honest. I just don't think it's going to be a book that I'm really going to enjoy. The reason I'm continuing it, because I get this asked a lot, like, well, why are you wasting your time? You know, if there's so many books that you want to read, why are you wasting your time on this? So the thing with classics is the first half tends to be very slow moving. I'm not even sure I'm going to like it. The last half tends to be where I'm like, wow, this was so good. But it's that first half. I don't know what it is about books, but typically speaking, that's what it is. So I am going to finish it. I have committed to this book club. And again, it gives me things to talk about with people that love it. And I like to bring up, like, The Great Gatsby. I hate that book. And when people talk about how much they love it, I'm like, I don't understand. You have such high morals. How do you love the fact that this whole story is about a man fantasizing about another man's wife? I don't get it. And, you know, for some reason that is just let go and is in the past, but the whole compelling story is still there. So I don't know. I know a friend of mine that watches this that loves Great Gatsby. So I've already had this conversation with you. I don't get it. So things like this just don't make sense to me, because some of the books that they don't like have that theme in it, but this one was okay. I'm sure there's idiosyncrasies about me that don't make sense either. There's just something that compels us to that. But let's go move on. Let's kind of talk about this YA. This is Alex and Eliza. This is a trilogy. The third one's back there. This one, I had heard so much about. It was a YA. The author is familiar to me because I think my daughter read the Inscrutables or something like that. Lost Descendants. Maybe it's Lost Descendants. And it has to do with Disney characters and things like that. Or it's a Disney book or something. My sister's read it. My daughter's read it. Just going with that. Anyway, I recognize the author. I heard that it was about Eliza Schuyler. I think it's Schuyler. And Alexander Hamilton. And it's a YA. And I was like, okay, well, my sister loves Hamilton the musical. My brother loves it. I'm not going to allow my kids to see it at this point. But I was really curious in this because the author wrote it after her 10-year-old daughter had seen Hamilton and had some questions. So she kind of wrote this trilogy based on that. I think there are a lot of liberties taken insofar as, I won't say poetic license, but literature license. I think she did take a lot. Because of that, I picked up a couple other books that I kind of want to compare with that. The opening is totally Pride and Prejudice. Her mother is out to find husbands for them, husbands of wealth, and Eliza is your Elizabeth Bennet. And so you have that, but then as Hamilton gets into the picture, you have kind of a twist, I think, into their story. So I have never seen Hamilton musical, so I kind of wonder how much this was written to be a companion to that. I think I gave it 4 stars. I would not put it as a YA. YA tends to be for ages 12 to 18. I sent one copy to my sister because I knew she would enjoy it. I will not let my daughter read this right now. And I just think that there are some content in here that needs to be screened. There actually was a chapter in here, chapter 30, that I had messaged my sister and said, just skip it. You'll get an idea of what happened in the next chapter and just leave it at that. And so there's that. And then I am in this one. I have to admit, I kind of taken this one a little bit more slowly than this one. I finished this one pretty quickly. This one is the second one, and it's after they're married, and that's kind of where we are on that. So it was enjoyable. But let's talk about these last two books. This is the first one. It is A Beautiful Blue World, and then the sequel, Threads of Blue, and this is it. So it's not like a trilogy or anything else. I can't remember what two books is called. So I found this one at my library. I read the back. It sounded really good. I was trying to figure out what country they were in during this World War, because it sounded so much like a World War I or World War II. And where is Soforend? I was trying to figure out where this country was, and then you're reading it, and it almost has a Giver feel to it. And again, I'm still trying to figure out where this country is. Is it like Sweden? Is it, something like that? I think the blue kind of made me. But it's a completely made up world that this author did, Suzanne Lafleur, and it tells the story of two girls during this war that they're like twin sisters. So, they're inseparable, and there's a war going on. They're going into the bomb shelter. There's a food shortage. There's families really struggling, and they're being bombed from the neighboring world that has like a black and white tiger stripe to it, that they're just all, on edge about. This was a 5-star read. This was a 4-star because I thought this one was better. And it's just these two girls that are really trapped in this war. And then what happens is they find a poster that is looking for children, and you take this test. Well, her friend, Meg, this one's Mathilde. I keep wanting to say Matilda, but it's Mathilde. Her friend is considered a genius, but Mathilde and her friend Megs is considered a genius, and Mathilde is kind of simple-minded, and not in the old-fashioned sense. She just struggles with school. She struggles with a lot of things, but she's very loyal. And she and Mathilde ends up getting chosen to go help with the war efforts, and Megs doesn't, which kind of puts a rift between them, just because it's like, well, you're the brighter one, that you're the one they need. But what she calls the examiner, she just labels her that. The examiner says, I have chosen you for a purpose. And so what ends up happening is they go to this place. It's a boarding school, and they just need children to look like it's a boarding school, but it's a highly intelligent base, and it's these kids that are brighter. And what they did is they took kids that because children see things in a different light than adults, so they took these children and they kind of capitalized on that to help with the war efforts. So, and that's what this book is about. I can't remember anything objectionable. I'm going to leave my Goodreads account link down below for you, because everything that I reviewed here I put in there, and then while I'm remembering it, I put in anything that could be objectionable to others. I put it in there, but this was 5-star. I highly recommend it. It was a beautiful book. It's gonna fall off. And then, because the library did not have the second one, and I wanted to know, you kind of are left on a cliffhanger. What happened? How does this finish up? And it was amazing. So I literally just went to Amazon and bought the second one, and I don't normally do that, but I wanted to know what happened. So basically the second book happens when they escape through the night, and she gets separated, and so she has to get back to this island to get back to her group. I'm going to have to give you a small spoiler alert for the first one, because it continues in the second one. Megs ends up coming with her to the boarding school later on in the book. The examiner notices that she's a loyal person. She's a person that thrives on human emotion contact, for lack of a better word. And so she brings the best friend, and the best friend is used to help out with this stuff. So they also capitalize on her strength. In the second book, as she gets to where they are, what happens, she gets to the other island, and she's considered a refugee. Again, a spoiler, her hometown gets bombed and taken over by the enemy. I can't think of the Syrians. And again, I'm trying not to spoil everything, but there is something that connects these two with the enemy. And she ends up on the beach. she ends up being a refugee, and until they can figure out where she's supposed to be, because she was top secret that the military intelligence is trying to figure out where she's supposed to be. And so you kind of get, again, the author brought in kind of the concept of our world in so far as, okay, so a soldier has died and they used poppies on the door to signify death instead of like our flags, and then she's red poppies, which is, you know, World War I, the poppy poem. So they brought in all these, and then even when she is a refugee, you're kind of wondering what this camp is really about. And again, it had a lot of those Manzanar similarities within it. I'm trying not to use the word vibes because it gets old. But it has a lot of Manzanar similarities. So the author really just put stuff that these kids would know and comprehend into this not so real world, and created these books. I inhaled both of these within a day picking them up. I read them through. 5 stars. I would recommend. The only thing that I could think of that could be a problem for some parents is the Megs and Mathilde have kind of a falling out in their friendship, and it's very intense, and it's bad attitudes towards the two. But I can't really see. I wouldn't have an objection with it. She's very loyal to her sister and is going to get back, or I'm sorry, her family, and is going to get back there and be with them and all this kind of stuff. And so that still remains within all of these for those that are more sensitive to family relations insofar as that. Let's see. I'm trying to think what else. Okay, fun fact. I went and looked up this author because in the back of her book, she has these kids. And I'm dying to know who these kids are because she talks about how she loves her kids. And this book is centered around kids. So I'm dying to know who those kids are. But in reading about like her favorite books growing up, one of them was The Giver. And I kept reading this thinking, this sounds like a Giver type of feel. So these were really, really good. This video is getting very long. I'm sorry. But that's going to be the books that I have read this month. It was a really good reading month. Yeah, the test is a little weird and all that. But it was a really good reading month. I'm really happy about that. So, because I have to like do something. So now, yeah, now I own book 2, but not book 1. So what I'm actually doing is, this is how I kind of justified it to myself. I'm actually taking this to our library and seeing if they want to donating it to them so that they have both books there. So that was kind of my justification of just going out and buying it, because when my kids want to read it, when my daughter wants to read it, she's got a full stack right now. Both of them will be there. So anyway, thank you so much for joining me this month and talking about what I read this month. Share down below, what are some of the great books that you read this month? I'm always looking up things I've never heard and recommendations. And so far as what we're reading now, we've got 3 books going on right now. We've got Jason's Gold, which was a book swap video that I did. It's from Creative Tea Time Mom. I'll leave her link down below in that video. We're doing Bronze Bow for our historical read, and then we're working through Gay Pigeon, which is a Newbery Medal winner, and just kind of doing that for fun. I'm kind of calling it a nature study type of book just because it is really fascinating. So those are going to be the 3 that you'll get to see at some point in the near future. Share with me down below what you're reading. I love looking them up and seeing and understanding more. Tell me why you like them too. I love those too. But until next time, have another cup of coffee and read another chapter. Bye.